Hi gentlemen, welcome back to chapter 13 on inheritance. So in this video, I'll be covering on 13.4 variation. So the learning point that we want to achieve by the end of this video is to be able to describe the difference between continuous and discontinuous variation. What exactly are these two types of variation, and what are some examples that fall under each of this category? Okay, so let's go straight to 13.4. So what exactly are variation, right? How do we vary from each other? Okay, we pause here to pen down some thoughts. What are some variations that you observe among people around you? So, variations are differences in traits. Okay, apologies. Let me try it again. All right, differences in trait. All right, example. Our height, our weight, right? Our hair color, skin color, right? These are all the differences that we will discuss in a bit, how we can categorize them into two different groups, continuous and discontinuous variation. So let me first dive into continuous variation, as you can see on the left. One good example of continuous variation is height. Okay, why would I say so? If I were to put all 1,300 over students in our school and arrange them according to height, right? And I would plot, okay, I'll plot a graph to show, okay, how many students of each height. This would be the graph that I will get as seen over here. All right, we cannot exactly put people into short, tall, right? It's very relative, right? What you deem as short may differ from what somebody else deem as short. All right, and even with somebody who is on paper 168 cm, for example, all right, if we really measure accurately, okay, it could be 168.1, 168.2, 168.3. So such a trait like height does not show any distinct category. We cannot put them into specific group of tall, medium, short. All right, okay, because there are intermediates between this trait. Okay, what is an example of intermediate between, for example, like what I mentioned, between 168 to 169, there are intermediates, 168.1, 168.2. And if we really want to be so accurate, right, we can even, go be more specific and precise with our instrument, okay, and measure the slight difference between people as well. So there are intermediates between the trait, okay, and this is controlled by the additive effect of many different genes combined. All right, so for example, height, okay, is due to the additive effect of many different genes involved that controls how tall a particular person is. Alright, so not exactly one gene in your chromosomes that determine how tall or short you are. And sometimes it's also affected by environmental conditions as well. All right, a person who is projected to be tall because his parents are tall, but do not have the best nutrition received since young. okay, may not be able to hit his full potential of being very tall. So it could be affected by environmental condition. For plants as well, right? Plants that are projected to be tall, all right, if they are not given the right conditions to grow, they will not also hit the height that they are expected to hit as well. All right, so I'll put some examples over here for your reference. Okay, so for human, the environmental condition could be nutrition, right? And then for plants, it could be the light intensity, carbon dioxide percentage, all right? And other physical factors, environmental factors such as pH, how salty the water is that will affect the growth of the plant, and so forth. Right? So continuous variation, we'll look at a few examples in a bit. All right, but before we talk about the examples, let me proceed on to discontinuous variation. So one really good example of discontinuation is our blood group, ABO blood group. All right, because in this system, all right, there are 4 distinct blood groups that humans can be categorized into: A, B, AB, and O. And we can easily use a bar chart, all right, bar graph, okay, to show how many people that falls into each of this blood group, for example, right, A, B, AB, and so forth. All right, so discontinuous variations, for characteristics that are examples of discontinuous variation, they show distinct category, right? And there is no intermediate between the traits. All right, person with blood group A is definitely blood group A. Person who is blood group B is definitely blood group B. There is no in between, right? And usually such traits are controlled by a few genes, and they are not affected by environmental changes. Right? Our blood group does not change regardless of how our environmental physical condition changes. Okay, so these are the 2 groups of variation that I've gone through. The best way to really understand this is to practice, all right, with the questions in the following page. So in this 8 examples that you can see over here, I would like you to pause the video, all right, and fill in the blank on your own to determine whether each of this example is a example of continuous or discontinuous variation. Alright, so pause the video and fill in the blank on your own before I reveal the answer. Alright, let's go through the example. For the first one, purple flower versus white flower, very distinct, very different colors, very specific, purple and white. So this is an example of discontinuous variation. Moving on, second example, you can see that the color of the seed varies from red to white, but there are so many different shades, right, which are intermediates, okay, between red and white. So this is an example of continuous variation. Right, moving on, example 3, which I've already gone through, height. It's a example of continuous variation, as you can see, okay, there are intermediates between what we deem as tall and short. Okay, so we cannot just put them in each of the category because their height, okay, forms an spectrum. Next, ability to roll tongue. All right, either a person can or cannot roll. All right, there's no in between. So this is an example of discontinuous variation. All right, next. Okay, a person's mass. All right, I think the answer is pretty straightforward. This is a example of continuous variation. Okay, no distinct category. All right, all our weight, if we were to plot a graph, will give us a curve. Your grades as well. All right, if we put all your grades for a particular subject, it will also form a bell curve. Next, all right, whether a person has detached or attached ear loop, this is pretty straightforward. It's an example of this continuous variation. All right, the next one would be tricky. All right, in this picture, we can see that, there are two different shades. But let's ask ourselves, okay, if I say somebody is brown skin tone, immediately in our mind, all right, all of us, when we think about brown skin tone, we might be taking different shades of brown as well. So even though this picture only shows two shades of skin color on this particular individual, all right, skin color is actually an example of continuous because there is a range of skin colors that people have. I know you guys may not be into know much about makeup, but foundation. All right, foundation that women often put on their face comes in so many different shades and colors as well. All right, it's because it is to cater to the different shades of skin tone and color that individuals have. Lastly, blood group, which I've already gone through. This is a example of continuous variation. All right, and that's it for 13.4 on variation. In my last video, all right, we will be discussing about mutation and how that affects our genetic makeup and how it affects our phenotype as well when there's a change in our genetic material.